people in the room where it happened. Democratic Congresswoman Jackie Speier of California, member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congresswoman, thanks so much for the time.
Great to be with you, Kate.
But what was the most important thing that you heard in that room from Rod Rosenstein today?
Well, first let me set the stage. Normally when we have these classified briefings, members kind of get bored after about 20 minutes or so and start streaming out. There was intense interest in this presentation. Most members stayed for the full extent of it. There was, I think, recognition that our roles as members of Congress is independent from that of the presidency. So for the first time, I felt that there was coordination really by the Democrats and the Republicans that the need for an independent investigation was paramount.
When you say the role of Congress, that does raise a couple questions that I do want to ask you. But first this, did Rosenstein, as we heard from Democrats coming out of their briefing yesterday in the Senate, did Rosenstein confirm to you that he knew that President Trump was going to fire Comey before he had even written that memo?
He was unwilling to tell us about the timeline, and he also made it clear that Mr. Mueller had the opportunity to explore virtually anything he wanted to regarding his memo, regarding the timeline, and I think we'll move forward from that point. At this point, really, I think the President has made it pretty clear that he directed that the memo be written. Whether he said it directly to Mr. Rosenstein or not is not obvious, but it's pretty obvious, I think, to the American people that that's where it came from.
But that does remain a question. I mean, was he asked directly why he wrote the memo?
Yes, he was, a number of times.
And he pushed that to Bob Mueller?
Yes, and he declined to answer. Now, he could also be arguing, executive privilege and attorney-client privilege, and a number of ways he could have played that, certainly.
Certainly. One Democrat texted our Phil Mattingly and said that Rod Rosenstein was frustratingly cautious. Is that how you would describe it?
Well, he's a deputy attorney general. He's not going to show his hand. He was very clear about the fact that Mr. Mueller will have all the resources he needs to do his job, and that the interest in moving forward is for him to carry on with this investigation independent of the AG.
Did he tell you about why and when he decided it was time to appoint a special counsel?
He did not.
Does Rosenstein consider, did he talk about it in the room, does he consider Mueller's inquiry now a criminal investigation?
Well, the Attorney General is charged with the responsibility of evaluating cases as to whether or not there's criminality. So that's certainly an element of that review by Mr. Mueller.
Getting back to kind of the role of Congress here, Congresswoman, there seems to be a big question as to what this special counsel means for your committee's investigating. I know that you have said that your committee can absolutely continue its work on the Russia investigation, but Senator Lindsey Graham, he doesn't seem to agree. Listen here to what he said.
I think the shock to the body is it's now considered a criminal investigation, and Congress's ability to conduct investigations of all things Russia has been severely limited, probably in an appropriate fashion. So I think a lot of members want the special counsel to be appointed, but don't understand that you're pretty well knocked out of the game. And that's probably the way it should be.
He says you guys are knocked out of the game now, Congresswoman.
Well, I think that's wishful thinking on Senator Graham's part. I think the investigations by both the House and the Senate are very relevant.
Well, he's got his own investigation. You can imagine he'd want to continue that too, right?
Well, I don't think, is he serving on the committee? I don't believe he serves on the committee.
He has, well, he has oversight over the FBI and in the Judiciary Committee, and he is investigating.
Right. Okay. So I would say that the criminal investigation, to the extent that it is beyond counterintelligence and a criminal investigation, will continue under the special counsel's auspices. The House and the Senate each have a responsibility to investigate the relationship of Russia, their intervention into our election, and whether or not Trump campaign operatives were involved in coordinating the actual intervention. So this goes to the heart of our democracy, and we have an absolute responsibility to investigate and to make sure moving forward that Russia's intervening in our elections does not happen again. And that means looking very closely into our system of election operations, the actual tallying of machines and the voter registration records, all of which I think were vulnerable in this last election.
Well, let me ask you specifically about the House investigation, Congresswoman. CNN has learned from House Intelligence Committee sources that Chairman Nunes is still reviewing intelligence related to Russia, despite the fact that, of course, he recused himself from all things Russia after that controversial episode involving the White House. Do you know this to be true yourself?
I believe it's a huge mistake if Chairman Nunes is doing that. He has been identified as an agent of the president, was clearly an agent of the president in that caper that went on some weeks ago where he went to the special source, came back, held a press conference, then went to the White House when in fact it was from the White House to begin with. So the fact that he may in fact be reviewing these classified documents about Russia is very concerning to me, and I think really violates his commitment to recuse himself.
We'll continue to follow that. I'm sure a lot ahead for you.